Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. In this update, we got ourselves a Warlock PvP buff for patch 9.1 PTR, a much needed patch to a surprisingly underrepresented class. We also have a whole nother mount added for Lightforged Draenei. Not only is Blizzard adding some of the new customizations for Nightborn, Lightforged, Void Elves, and High Mountain, since Legion Time Walking is coming out, so they're paying an homage to some of the Legion allied races, but for allied Draenei Paladins particularly, you get a brand new mount with some unique animations. We also have other updates like more alt catch-up as well as Korthia improvements for getting your alts and mains caught up with all the different relics, and I'm gonna talk about all these updates in today's video. But first, if you're not subscribed yet and you watch these videos, most of you guys watching aren't subscribed, subscribe, hit the bell, you're gonna watch these videos anyway, but let's get into the update. First things first, let's take a look at the Lightforged Draenei brand new mount as a Paladin, which is a Lightforged Runestrider. If you've played back in Legion, we get to travel to a planet called Argus, which is full with alien creatures, and one of them being Runestrider, which is a kind of a mix of a deer and a stag and a ram, but a little bit off-worldy. Every single playable race in World of Warcraft that can be a paladin comes with their own paladin mount, but the paladin mounts are different depending on what kind of character you play. So if you're a human or a blood elf, you both get a horse. However, the dwarves get a ram, the Draenei get an Elk, the Tauren get a Kodo, and the Zandalari get a Direhorn. And now the Lightforged get their own mount with some unique animations. It is really cool to see how they keep adding more and more customizations for some of the allied races of Legion, especially with Legion Time Walking coming out hopefully sometime soon. And if you've never played an allied race before like a Lightforged Draenei, now would be the perfect time to start leveling one, because once you can hit max level Paladin, you'll have the full Heritage Armor as well as a brand new mount to ride on. Next, we got some updates for Warlocks when it comes to PvP, and I was kind of surprised to find out the Warlock is actually a pretty underrepresented class when it comes to WoW PvP, at least currently in Shadowlands. Taking a look at Warlock Changes for Affliction, Deathbolt PvP talent now deals 50% of the remaining damage over time instead of 40 and can no longer critical strike. Additionally, the spell now reaches the target faster. This is a pretty interesting change to Deathbolt. It can't really say if it's a buff or a nerf, but it does adjust it in slight ways. First of all, it now does more damage based on damage over time abilities, but can no longer crit. So instead of having it go for like 80% damage over time abilities or that crit chance, because it would be double the number instead of what it originally was, this makes the ability, while less crit based, so you can't really crit for big numbers, the damage buff to it is more consistent. And I wonder if there's some talents, some kind of a playstyle, some kind of abilities that can be used together in a combo to make that Deathbolt damage even better for that consistency, because it should hit the same amount of damage numbers every single time now. Also, the spell traveling a little bit faster does make it a little bit more of a bursty option for Affliction Warlocks, especially since, I mean, if somebody dispels your dots as the Deathbolt is traveling, that could be the worst situation, so making it travel faster is obviously a buff. The buff to Rapid Contagion makes it so the duration is now 20 seconds instead of 15. This is quite a crucial damage ability for Affliction Warlocks when it comes to consistent damage as well as burst. So having this ability last a little bit longer should allow them to set up their burst a bit better, but also get more damage output out of the valuable dots. Also, Dark Soul Misery talent for Affliction Warlocks can no longer be dispelled, which I imagine it can no longer be spell stolen by mages either. This is a pretty huge buff. For Affliction Warlocks, there's not too many damage burst opportunities. I mean, you have your dots, you have your Dark Glare, you can get them Rapid Contagion rolling, but Misery added that extra haste buff to add more pressure to the enemy team, whether to cast your spells quicker, but also to empower your dots to the tick more often. And having that ability dispelled with Affliction Warlock damage as kind of weak as it is, made it just a lot worse to play one, so hopefully they should have a bit more consistent guaranteed pressure. Then we get Destruction Warlock PvP changes. Bonds of Fel has been redesigned. It no longer snares the target and no longer splits the damage with pets and guardians. This is a pretty big buff. The snare prior to this was a little bit counterintuitive, because when you drop Bonds of Fel, you create this crystal, and the crystal will bind itself to any player nearby. If the player gets too far from the crystal explodes, doing damage to every enemy tethered to it. but it also put up a slow on the enemy, so as the enemy is walking away from crystal, they realize, wait, I'm slow, wait, I'm bound to this crystal, maybe I should stand next to it for like a few seconds for it to fade so I don't take extra fire damage. So now enemies can easily run out of the crystal without even knowing what's going on, which is kind of like encourages enemies to leave the crystal, encourages them to take damage. And also, the fact that the damage no longer splits between pets and guardians and all that stuff, everybody that gets tagged by the crystal is going to take the same amount of damage, which adds more consistency and even AoE spread capability for Destro Warlocks to put up pressure to enemies that are too closely stacked together, maybe like behind a pillar, as you're rushing in to Howl of Terror them way out of the crystal, doing damage to everybody in the group. And also, their Dark Soul Instability talent that gives them a bunch of crit can no longer be dispelled. Again, a great buff for a 2-minute cooldown. If someone can just steal it or remove it, there goes your damage for 2 minutes, where you're setting up 2 quick Chaos Bolts back to back. This is going to make Destruction Warlocks a little bit better for PvP output. It is, however, hard to tell if this is going to be enough. This is definitely a buff for both of these specs of Warlock, and should hopefully allow them to have more readily available as well as more consistent damage options and damage movements whenever they drop down Dark Soul Misery. But Warlocks are not really trending super high in Shadowlands PvP in 2s and 3s brackets, depending on the website you look. They are some of the lower played and lower population classes, so hopefully this makes that a little bit better. But also what would help them out probably is all these classes that shut down Warlocks like Warriors, Beastmaster, Hunters, Windwalker Monks. If those classes got toned down just a little bit, maybe that would do more towards giving Affliction Warlocks, Destro Warlocks, and I guess all Warlocks really more breathing space within Arena and within PvP. We also got another item for catch up for your alts from the Heirloom Broker in Oribos. You can now spend a metric ton of anima to get an item that rewards 5,000 experience to any adventure companion of your choice. If you're someone who actually does do the little mission table for all your different covenants and like to keep up with it, because the mission table is kind of useful. It can give you gold, it can give you augment runes, which I kind of stopped buying my augment runes completely one rating because my mission table just gives me so many of them. And if you want some soul cinders and soul ash on the side, then the mission table is pretty good for that. So if you're someone who is a little behind on some of your different adventurers, let's say you have a main character that has all their adventures buffed up, but you're trying to get an alt up and running and you want that alt to catch up a little quicker, you could send some anima to the alt character, and that alt can use that anima to buy upgrades and experience for some of their adventurers if you do end up using the mission table for any of your alt characters. So while minor, at least is more alt catch-up stuff that's being added on the vendor, and the more stuff they add and the lower the price of that stuff is, the better. Finally, we have some updates towards Korthia. They've added a couple different things like a weekly quest with Korthia, which I think is really good, but also they added more ways for you to be able to get relics. First of all, Korthia rares now have a chance to drop relics on repeat kills instead of a daily lockout chance. More relic carrying enemies can be found in Korthia. These are the enemies that have a purple outline if you have purchased the all-seeing eye on any of your characters in your account. And trained grommets will also collect more relic caches, which means that if you end up spending time in Korthia, normally you do stuff there on a daily lockout. You kill one of every rare, you loot one of every chest, you do all the different activities, and then you're capped. And this kind of tries to take off any caps from Korthia. So if you just want to spend a bit of time grinding this place on an alt character or catching up to everybody else in 9.1.5, you could totally do so. This added together with some of the other updates they've done for Korthia, where the daily quest can reward you and will reward you more renown. You can get an item that gives you more reputation, 50% more rep from doing anything over in Korthia, so you can catch up with your Korthian codexes to rank 6 a little quicker. All the different rares and all the different chests have a higher chance to drop you double the amount of relics, so you can just keep killing those rares over and over. They have a higher chance to drop you all the stuff. So the currency grinding in Korthia, if you choose to do so and engage with it, you should be able to get what you need from the vendor way faster going into 9.1.5. But maybe grinding for hours and hours in Korthia isn't really up to your speed. Maybe that's something you don't really want to do once 9.1.5 comes out. You'd rather be able to do the important stuff in Korthia kind of once a week and then not really touch that place again, just level characters in your free time, doing dungeons, maybe even PvP. Well, it's perfect because they added a weekly quest into Korthia called Lost Research. You'll be able to talk to the archivist in the cave in Korthia in order to pick it up. You just need to have a key to enter a rift. Inside of the rift, you have to slay various enemies from elites to non-elites. The harder the enemy, the more likely they are to drop you the items you need in order to complete the quest. You could also complete the quest by looting the 4 different chests over in Korthia, as well as slaying any of the rares that can be found inside of the rift. They also adjusted the mobs inside of the rift to have a chance to drop relics, as well as relic fragments, so now there's more of a reason to go inside of the rift. And for turning in the quest, you get 1,000 research as well as 800 towards the rep with the Archivist. If you're trying to get to the tier 5, the tier 6 reputation with the Archivist, this is quite a solid chunk of experience that normally you just wouldn't be able to get while farming in Korthia. This means that whether you're someone who wants to grind out Korthia just to get out of the way, or if someone who doesn't really want to touch it too much except for the most important stuff, you will be able to get quite a big chunk of extra bonuses from Korthia on top of all the other benefits they've added overall in 9.1.5. Which should hopefully make it significant in terms of catching up your ults, but also for any new players coming back to 9.1.5 for the Mage Tower. If you do want to check out Korthia and catch up to everybody else to try the new raid, hopefully you should be able to do so easily. But for now, that's all we have so far with 9.1.5 update. I'm really hoping that we hear sometime soon about when 9.1.5 is going to be available. It looked like they're mostly slowing down on some of these updates, but I'm surprised that they actually have had a Warlock PvP update this week. And I wonder if we'll see some kind of PvP nerfs and maybe even meta changes in the future. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on everything we talked about so far. And I'll see all of you guys in another video.